Hello everyone, and welcome back to week 3 of Having People Over, my 4-week series to celebrate my brand new book, Having People Over, out October 21st, wherever books are sold. It is all about the art of hosting, gathering, building a life, building a community, and doing all of these things on a budget. It is also, in my opinion, a truly gorgeous book full of illustrations and photography and recipes and practical tips. Look, there I am. And all different things that you could possibly want to get started on your journey, not just to be a better hostess, but also to be a better friend, a better sort of citizen of humanity, not the jeans, the actual thing. Having People Over, it's coming out soon, and like the number one thing that you can do for me, please, 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 is pre-order this. It helps more than you possibly know. But I say all this to say I am doing a 4-week series, and last week we were talking about things that cost less than $25 but sort of immediately upgrade your life. This week I kind of wanted to do the opposite, especially as it pertains to the home, which is not just a big focus of the book, but also a big focus of our content here at TFD, because ultimately where we live, how we fill the space we live in determines a huge amount of our day-to-day budget. For most people, it's like their largest expense. So I wanted to talk about the things that we bring into our home thinking that they will upgrade it, but they actually cheapen it. And that doesn't just mean cheapen it sort of visually and aesthetically. It also means cheapening it in terms of just filling your space physically, mentally, and otherwise with things you just don't need, or that maybe aren't a true and authentic reflection of you. I just want to say a quick thank you to the sponsor who is making this series possible, Monarch. So as I've shared before on the channel, I am a huge believer in and user of budgeting apps, and my preferred budgeting app is Monarch. I actually used Monarch for some time before we even started working together, so I was really excited when they wanted to partner with us. But a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in this series and what I talk about in the book is just entirely about gaining control over your financial life so that you can use money as a tool to build a life that you enjoy and that makes you feel fulfilled and surrounded by good community. And for me anyway, having a good handle on your day-to-day finances is crucial in that process. And I highly recommend using Monarch to take the guesswork out of managing your money. You can use it to budget, to set goals, and to actually understand where your money's going each week. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Monarch was named the best mint replacement by Forbes, and Wall Street Journal named it the best budgeting app. Plus, there's no ads, and they don't sell your financial data to third parties, and there are no premium-only upsells. So if you're interested in trying out Monarch, just click the link in our description and you'll get 50% off your annual plan with code TFD. For me anyway, I have historically been very insecure about my home and the way my home looks and how quote unquote nice it is. For whatever reason, I was just never the girl who sort of coveted things like fashion or like watched fashion influencers and felt very sort of envious or inspired. I never like wanted designer bags or things like that, but I did feel that way about home decor. Like I've always been very interested in it. My mother has always been very interested in it as well and is very good at like actually doing a lot of renovations herself and DIY. So it was always kind of a part of my life growing up and always kind of an expression of self. But when you are in the sort of mid to late 20s, even early 30s, that is often a period of our lives where our tastes and what we're seeing, especially on social media, way exceed our ability or our finances. And often we get the wrong ideas about the things that are going to make us feel more elevated or like a more realized version of ourselves. We're often looking for shortcuts and kind of the cheap and easy ways to get the look that we want. And we also often don't realize that, again, especially on social media, what we're comparing ourselves to isn't real. Like either these people are astronomically outside of our tax bracket and not being honest about it, or they are having professional help, or they are showing you stuff that's all like sponsored and paid for. And you really don't know what you're looking at when it comes to social media, but kind of beyond that, even if you did know what you're looking at, the home is not really something that you can just look at someone else's version of it and say, copy, paste, that's what I want. In theory, just like any other form of personal style and expression, it should be a reflection and an extension of yourself, your own original taste, the life that you've lived, the things that you've collected. But it took me a long time to learn these things. I am still actively in the process of learning it, and in many cases had to learn it the hard way. So these to me are the 11 things that you think are upgrading your home, but are actually cheapening it. Number one is new furniture. Now, those who are eagle-eyed may notice that I have a different lamp next to me than I did in prior videos of this same series, because I recently picked this up on one of my favorite online estate sale websites, Everything But the House. It's a vintage Chelsea house lamp from the late 80s. I paid $300 for it. It was originally probably somewhere between $1,000 and $1,300 adjusted for inflation based on the prices of these lamps. But suffice to say, like, I had known for a while that I wanted a different lamp because the one that I had here before didn't really fit the space. It was not big enough. It didn't throw enough light. And I had another awkward lamp behind this chair that I never liked. I've had that for like 10 years. But anyway, point being, I knew I wanted a new lamp. And I knew roughly kind of the aesthetic I wanted. I went back and forth with a few different options. I actually went to many in-person flea markets and antique shops, took my time, and then I found this piece and I bid on it and I won. But the entire process of getting this new lamp, as an example, that has been something I've been wanting to do for quite some time, took months. And if you count the time that like I was passively thinking I should get a different lamp but wasn't actively trying, years, basically since I've lived in this home. And that is something that prior Chelsea would never have been comfortable with. I hated anything that didn't feel finished or didn't feel like it was the exact thing I wanted for that space. So what did that often mean? Buying things new. And in the case of furniture, often what that means you're buying is stuff like MDF, medium density fiberboard, which is basically just like compressed sawdust and glue. All of this furniture that, as we discuss in our video essay coming up in October, is essentially meant to be used once and then thrown in the garbage. You can't assemble and disassemble anything. When you are buying things new, no matter how perfectly they might fit the specific thing that you're looking for, ultimately you are almost always going to be sacrificing in terms of quality, in terms of originality, in terms of aesthetics. And that's why I always say, like, patience is the number one asset that you can have when you're shopping for literally anything. Like, there are going to be a few purchases in life that we really don't have the choice to be patient about because of various constraints. So artificially imposing a sense of urgency on yourself when it comes to buying home goods, again, in this case, buying things like new furniture and accessories, you think it's going to upgrade your space because it's going to make it feel more finished, but ultimately you are always going to get the lesser version of the thing. Number two is designer candles / coffee table books. Now, I sort of lump these together because when you are looking online at a certain kind of home aesthetic, you will often see those two things, if not in the same space, literally together on the same coffee table. You'll have a couple different designer coffee books in rotation. Like, it'll either be I think they're the Aceline ones that are like Monaco, Saint-Tropez, blah, blah, blah. Or you'll have the ones that are like Chanel, YSL, blah, blah, blah. Like, one is like a very colorful aesthetic. One is like a black and white aesthetic. These are like massive, massive, super expensive coffee table books that, first of all, you're never reading. Let's be very clear about that. You are never reading these things. But even if you did, like, I'm not opposed to coffee table books. I think I have like 3 or 4 in my home, most of them gifted, not that I went out and bought, but like, I do like certain coffee table books if I feel like they are in any way relevant to my actual life or interests. I historically will buy them like at our farmer's market every week. There's a secondhand book vendor that comes and often has great graphic novels. I actually just bought one last week, one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. He had a copy of coffee table books, things like that. But like for me, for example, I love ones that are about like really interesting home design, or my father is an illustrator, so I love vintage illustration books. Like, there are certain things that I'm like, okay, once in a while, sure, there might be something that's relevant. And even then, I don't actually think coffee table books are the sleigh that we often think it is. They kind of just collect dust. But at minimum, they should have something to do with you and your life. And you should never, ever be paying full price for them because they are so outrageously expensive. So for me, the ones that are like very clearly, you just typed like coffee table book chic or something into Google and just like picked the ones that came up, like, to me, if I ever see those in a home, I'm like, oh, like, this is borderline giving like staged home to sell. And similarly, designer candles, like there are certain product types that designer brands make just to get money out of poor people. Like, we talk in the October video essay about how a lot of luxury goods sales actually go to people who make less than $50,000 a year. And generally speaking, when you look at the products that people who are in that bracket can afford, like, unless they're, which is never the case, like going into credit card debt or things like that, it'll often be things like candles, you know, keychains, little tiny items here and there, luggage tags, things that sort of give you that hit of, I have this designer product, but I can't actually enter into, buying, let's say, the designer handbag or, the ready-to-wear collection or the belt, or even whatever. And this could be like an actual designer, which is sometimes the case with these candles, or it could be like an ultra luxe designer candle brand that just specializes in candles, like a diptyque. I have gotten diptyque and Aesop stuff as a gift over the years, and like, don't get me wrong, when I get it, I'm like, yay, sure, why not? But even then, like, I do feel like this like makes me sad for your money that you bought this, because I just personally think in an era of like TJ Maxx and Home Goods and Marshalls, there's literally never a reason to be spending hundreds of dollars on a candle. You just don't need to. You can get perfectly nice candles at discount prices basically everywhere. These are not luxury goods. They're literally some wax in a glass cup. Like, it is not a big deal. But also they're meant to be burned. Like, to me, it's on par with like spending a ton of money on flowers that are just going to die. So all of that is to say, the candles and coffee table books, they often feel like a sort of entry-level way into making your home feel more upgraded and adult, but to me often communicate the opposite, which is just to say like a lack of discernment slash kind of being a sucker for a designer label. Number 3 is seasonal holiday decor. Now, I want to be clear, I have a Christmas tree. I have an artificial Christmas tree. I use the same one every year. Sorry, I know that some people don't like it aesthetically. They love like the smell and vibe of like a real tree. I have a dog, first of all. It's a huge hassle, but also like I'm just not here to be cleaning up pine needles all the time. I like my artificial tree. But suffice to say, I have a Christmas tree. I have 3 Christmas stockings, one for me, one for my husband, one for my dog. I have the same ornaments that I've used year after year. Like, I have a small collection of Christmas decor that gets brought out once a year, and every now and again I'll add 1 or 2 things to it, like if I see a cute ornament while I'm out. But that's it. I decorate for Christmas. Maybe that's way too consumerist of me, but it feels like a happy medium because I grew up with a family that loved to decorate for Christmas. I love making my home feel special. So sue me. That being said, we have gotten, especially driven by social media, into a level of disposable consumerism as it pertains to holiday and seasonal decor. Like, these bitches are like turning over their entire homes on a basically monthly basis at this point, like filling their homes with like Halloween stuff, which is different from just regular fall stuff, which is different from Thanksgiving stuff. And then you have Valentine's Day, and then you have the first day of spring, and then you have May, and it is never ending. Easter, 4th of July. And to me, aside from the fact that like this kind of stuff is just incredibly wasteful, it's often like plastic, cheap nonsense. In addition to being wasteful, it has kind of an aesthetic of wastefulness because it usually doesn't serve any kind of functional purpose, and you know that it's just getting rotated out constantly. Like, okay, maybe you want to like carve a pumpkin, fine, but that's like a biodegradable piece of fruit. Is pumpkin a fruit? It's a gourd. It's a biodegradable gourd, right? Like, you're not like, filling your house with a bunch of nonsense plastic for every single holiday. But I think part of the reason why ultra turnover holiday / seasonal decor has become sort of thought of as aspirational is because it is what drives a lot of the social media engagement of home creators. Like, I really had to go out of my way to unfollow most home creators who like their brand is their home. Because here's the thing. If you never change your space, there's only so much content you can create. There's only so much engagement you can get. Like, you could have the most beautiful home in the world, but if it always looks the same, kind of gets boring after a while, kind of has diminishing returns. So what do these creators do? And then by extension, the people following them start to normalize. They change it for basically every season and occasion. Like, that is kind of the norm of anyone you might follow who's an influencer in this space. And also, to me, like, aside from the fact that it's like very over consumerist, very wasteful, etc., like, it's also such a shame because one of the reasons that I've always really loved home decor and design as sort of like my locus of creative aspiration as opposed to things like personal style or fashion is because personal style or fashion like kind of inherently lends itself more to a sense of transience. Like, people get changed every day. People wear different outfits all the time. Like, it's very normalized to never show up on social media twice in the same outfit, especially for special occasions. And I really don't like that. And in theory, the good thing about creating a home that you love is that it gets to remain the same for a really long time. And you get to have a ton of long-term enjoyment out of that one single act of creating and building it. And you get to slowly iterate on it through the years. Not so So unfortunately, the sort of devil's handshake of capitalism and social media algorithms have decided that no, our homes must also fall to this overconsumption nonsense. So all of that is to say, ultra seasonal decor, not a sleigh. Chelsea from the future popping in here to say that one of my recent videos for my 30-day Having People Over series on YouTube Shorts is all about how to celebrate the seasons and holidays in your home in a way that isn't just like buying a bunch of wasteful plastic nonsense. So if you want some ideas for that, I'll link it in the description. Number 4 is matching everything. That could be like a really matchy furniture set, which to me just always gives like you went down to one of those furniture warehouses and just like bought one of, you know, everything in a certain collection. Also, I think often exists downstream from like trying to get everything new because it's much harder to find like full sets of vintage pieces. You can sometimes, but it's definitely not as easy. But the one I really want to talk about, especially as it pertains to hosting and having people in your home, is anything to do with serving. So a lot of times people will be like, I can't have a dinner party because I don't have 8 matching glasses. What? Who cares? Like, people should, first of all, not only is it totally fine and normal if people have different glasses, I fully don't have a set of matching wine glasses. I have like 2 half sets because like wine glasses break, dude. And I'm not going to go out and buy a brand new set of wine glasses every time one breaks. Like, people are just gonna have to live with the fact that their wine glasses look slightly different if I have a 6-person dinner. So it's like not at all realistic to have a perfect set of everything. And also, to be clear, the insistence on having full matching sets of everything when it comes to serving is that it also often has the problem we talked about in the buying new furniture thing, which is that you have to buy cheap versions of things because you have to buy so many of them. So I say all of that to say, like, not only is it not realistic financially or otherwise, I actually think it looks really cute and chic to have mismatched things. Like, I love one of my friends who loves to have us over for dinner. She always has she has very colorful servingware, colorful plates, glasses, etc. And everyone will always have sort of like mix and match. Like, you get a blue plate and a pink wine glass and things like that. And I think that's so cool looking. I love when like everyone has a different teacup and like pieces are collected over time and don't look perfect and aren't matchy. So yeah, and again, I'm going to lay this at the feet also of social media, of teaching us that things always need to come in these like perfect matching sets. I would argue that they do not. And I would also argue it's often way better, more personal, more beautiful to have things that are imperfect but unique. Number 5 is appliances that you never actually use but take up a ton of space on your counters or in your cabinets. I have fallen victim to this many times of thinking that like, oh, I should be the kind of person who has X or Y appliance, or I saw someone using something online and I was like, wow, I really want the same. Now, one thing that I will say I do use the hell out of, even though it takes up a good amount of counter space, is my toaster oven / air fryer. I have one of the little Breville toaster ovens. As someone whose big oven doesn't currently work right now for reasons we don't need to get into, but also whose oven turns her entire 2-bedroom apartment into a furnace, unless it's the dead of winter. And even then, like, my oven is just hot as hell. And ovens just generally tend to be like, the toaster oven has been a complete game changer. Love it. But what is not an upgrade and what does cheapen, especially the experience of living in your home, is having a bunch of appliances that you use like twice a year, but that you have to like find a place for, that you have to wash and clean and dust, that you have to take with you when you move. Like, I'm not gonna say that no one has ever gotten use out of a Ninja Creamy, but I have like 4 friends who bought a Ninja Creamy when it was like really going viral on TikTok. And I remember in one of the cases, my friend was like, should I get a Ninja Creamy? And I was like, I actually don't think so, because I don't think you'll actually end up using it that much. I think you'll probably use it once or twice and then it'll just like collect dust. And she was like, no. I love ice cream. And like, I love ice cream, but I have like 4 grocery stores in a 10-minute walk from me. I'm never far from a pint of delicious ice cream. I can also just like, I don't know, go to an ice cream shop. All of that is to say, anytime I go to her house now, Ninja Creamy caught in 4K, like collecting dust on, you know, the back of a cabinet or whatever. And I am just like, first of all, sell that thing on Facebook Marketplace or give it away. Why are we even keeping it? But just remember, when you are bringing things that are as costly and cumbersome as appliances into your home, that they should be done with the utmost level of intentionality. Because although it feels like it will be an upgrade to get these new things, because you're always sort of like gaslighting yourself about what you'll be able to do with them, what is truly an upgrade, especially if you live in a smaller space, is practicality, is counter space, is actually using the things that you own. So do not be fooled. only get appliances you're actually gonna use. Similarly, and we're not gonna stay on this too long, number 6 is overly aesthetic / trendy cookware. Like, I feel like every so often there are like items of cookware that like go way viral or like trending on social media. Like for a long time, it was like those like ridiculous pink pans that were like way too expensive and actually not good as pans. There is something I think happening on social media right now with like the Mackenzie Childs kitchen line. And I get it kind of, like I have the black and white tile in my kitchen, so I do like the checkerboard look, but also Mackenzie Childs, look into that brand, they stole the brand from the actual Mackenzie Childs and like left her destitute. Go down that rabbit hole. Is a bad company, don't support them. But either way, like, do you need a $300 tea kettle? Like, especially if you're struggling to pay rent? Like, I don't think you do. Like, and I do think that anything that you bring into your kitchen specifically that you're like, wow, you bought that in 2016 because it was going viral on TikTok or whatever. Like, it never ever upgrades your home, either aesthetically or from an experience perspective, the way you think it will. Now, number 7 is gonna be any faux abundance of cheap items. So one of the things that you will see so much of on social media is a very large quantity of things that are not expensive. Like, people will have, like, for example, a popular one is makeup. Like, people will have vanities that have just like drawers and like shelves and racks and lazy Susans and like all these different, sort of light, LED light mirrors and a million brushes and all of these things. And first of all, that's crazy. That's like just a step up from hoarder, but also like, it's gross. Like, things aren't meant, like, you are not meant to have 100 of something and let it expire and let it collect dust and bacteria and all of this stuff. Like, we need to get away from the idea of like having a faux abundance of something or like having a ton of something really cheap as any sign of actual abundance or actual wealth or actual value. Like, to me, again, especially in a small space, it is just the opposite. I used to hoard and collect certain things because I felt like it was like more aspirational for me to have a lot of it. And now I'm like, if I'm not using it, get it the F out of here. Like, another good example is clothes. Like, people so often have way more clothes, way more shoes, coats, belts, accessories than they ever actually use. Like, they'll have a wardrobe that is literally 4 to 5 times as large as the actual rotation of clothes that they're regularly using. But something feels comforting and abundant about having too much of something. And listen, as someone who grew up poor, like, I get it. I understand the allure. I understand the appeal. But it's important to remember that, like, it is a false sense of luxury. It is a false sense of abundance. And really all it does is downgrade the experience in your home because you're having to clean more, you can't find what you need, and you're honestly living in clutter. Even if it's well-organized clutter, it's still clutter. We can cut back to me in old videos where I was surrounded by like 25 throw pillows on a single sofa. I'm certainly no stranger to this behavior. And we all have our, what are they called? We all have our vices as it pertains to having too much of something. But generally speaking, although you think that having a ton of something will upgrade your home experience, it will do the opposite. Number 8 is any intellectual shit you clearly don't use. So I'm gonna say things like really old edition collections of books that you're clearly never reading. Like, I've been to people's houses where it's like, they have like a collection of like, I don't know, like botanical journals from like the 1800s or whatever. And like, I get that there's like an aesthetic value of it, but I'm just like very opposed to things that are like meant to give an air of sort of academia or intellect or sophistication if you're not in any way actually engaging with it, because then it's just collecting dust. Then you might as well have just like kept that shelf bare and saved yourself the trouble. Another one is like chess boards that you never use because you don't play chess. I don't play chess. Like, I know how to play, but my husband's really good at chess. It's not fun to play with him. I don't like playing with him. So I don't really play. So I'm not going to keep a chessboard out. He has one, but it stays put away up in the cabinet. And then he occasionally breaks it out when one of his chess friends comes over. People have like the really old fancy globes. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys? Like, I just like the really faux intellectual stuff. This is really a boy thing. I feel like women do this way less. But I've seen like several boys, like some of my husband's bachelor friends, they have like all this stuff that looks like it's from like the cigar room on the Titanic. I'm just like, why are we bringing this into our homes? Like, we're clearly not engaging with it. A magnifying glass and compass. Like, where are we navigating to in here? One bedroom apartment. Anyway, all of that is to say, I just personally think, as someone who used to bring in items into her home as like a way to sort of signal a level of a sort of intellectual affectation that I wasn't actually living that life, it's again never the sleigh you think it is, and honestly just leads to more stuff that you have to dust.
Especially whenever you buy that stuff new.
Yes, like people who buy like, because like I've been to Home Goods and seen like all of those like fake old books that, which like again, they serve a purpose, and that purpose is to put fake books in a house when you're selling it. That's like basically the only, that and like hotels, I guess. But you should not, you should like have books that you read. Or you don't even have to have books. Get a library card. I don't know. But just like don't have a bunch of like, yes, let's read up on the history of like the Crimean War or something. Like, anyway. Number 9 is any really trend-based furniture. Right now, everyone's going through it with those boneless couches that they were buying last year because they were trending, and they were like, oh, actually, it's better if you buy a couch that has some structure in it, some wood. Like, there's like always, like for a while, it was like all of the like super wavy Gen Z furniture, like the wavy mirrors and like the wavy candles and chairs. You can always, like, if it's something as small as a candle or, you know, an accessory or even, you know, a little ottoman or something, sure, go really trend based. But, you know, I came from the millennial to 2016, like we were in the thick of like the live, laugh, love for millennials type furniture and sort of home decor aesthetic. And like the number of things that I look back on and I'm like, anyone could look at that picture for 2 seconds and know that it was taken in 2016. You know what I mean? And like, that is the kind of thing. And I think that this is true of basically all style, whether that's what you put on your body or what you put in your home. Like, you really want to avoid things that feel so of a moment, not just because they will very quickly go out of style, but also because you never want to look like you just like went into a store and you were like, what are people buying? You know, you want to feel like the things that you buy are an expression of self and an expression of your personal taste and experience. Again, this is one of the primary reasons why buying secondhand is so valuable, because kind of inherently these things are going to be more timeless because they are not of our time. And if they've made it from, you know, decades ago all the way into you know, an estate sale or a thrift shop where someone wants to buy it, chances are they have a much more long-term aesthetic value than whatever happens to be trending right now. Number 10, and I'm sorry, maybe some people disagree with this, but I have to say it, anything with big designer logos, and I'm specifically looking at you, Hermes throw blanket, like the tackiest. Like I rarely get on my high horse about what I truly feel is like low rent. I grew up poor. I certainly have engaged in much low rent behavior in my life, but there is just something so tacky to me about people who like go out of their way to have like big designer logos in their home, like on their home goods, for a couple reasons. One, because half the time that shit's fake because the companies don't even make the items that they're having. Like, sorry to inform you, but like Chanel isn't making like a giant throw pillow that has like the double C's on it. Like, that's fake. But more importantly, like the people who are like, when you go into an apartment that is not at the income level of someone who would just be throwing around a bunch of Hermes stuff, like, which is to say 99% of homes, I certainly can't afford to just be buying a bunch of Hermes products. And then you see like the one Hermes throw blanket that they spent all of this money on. Not only is it completely incongruous with the rest of the items they own, not only is it sort of what we were talking about earlier, where it's like not at all valued for your individual expression of style or any meaning it might have to your life, but like you are very specifically aspiring to it because of what it signals from the sort of designer slash, you know, financial perspective. But the worst part is like, if it is real and you really do want it, you never use it. Like when people get these items, like the big Hermes throw blanket or like a designer candle, they don't burn the candle, they don't use the blanket, like they won't touch any of these things because they're like, oh, this is like the one really fancy thing I bought, so I have to keep it nice. I personally feel, and maybe this is really classist of me, but I just personally feel, and by the way, I feel this when I watch like a Becca Bloom video and see everything that has like all of these ridiculous logos all over it. I think it's really tacky when rich people do it too, because again, all buying all designer stuff says to me is that like you went into a store and were like 1. Like it doesn't say anything about your style, your creativity, your life, anything like that. Especially when you are clearly not financially in a place where you are just filling your home with designer goods and you couldn't care less. Like to me, it just signals all of the wrong priorities. And I am not going to pretend I have not wasted money on similar things in the past, but I do think like it is one of the few things that, in my view, instantly degrades the overall sort of visual and, self-expressive nature of your space. Lastly, we must end on what I think is the most sort of gives you a false sense of upgrading, but actually cheapens. And we've mentioned this before on the channel, but having more space than you need. That is the ultimate one. And we have said this before on the channel. We get into a little bit in our October video essay, but like homes have gotten insanely big in America, way more than in other developed countries. Now, part of that is geographic, part of that is just like our own culture and our relationship to space and home ownership. But like what is undeniable is that like people on average in America live in way, way bigger homes than they used to. And what is the result of that? Two things. One, a bunch of unused rooms. Like the number of times you'll go into someone's home and they're like, oh, that's like the living room, but it's like completely untouched furniture. And then the TV room is where everyone hangs out. And it's like, babe, you could have just like made the TV room slightly nicer and not had this whole other room, but okay, that's one. And then the other thing is like filling those rooms with a bunch more stuff you don't need. And actually, fun fact that we do get into in the October video essay is that like, in addition to having way bigger houses than they need on average, Americans on average still also have storage units. So like, they're filling their houses with a bunch of crap, so much so that even when they have like 4 or 5, whatever 1,000 square foot homes, they still need additional storage. It's crazy. So to me, when you are looking at a place to rent or to buy, the best thing you can do is think about an economy of space, think about what you are using that space for. Think about, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that like someone who has multiple children shouldn't have enough rooms for each kid. Like I will never forget the day that I went from sharing a room with my sister to having my own room. It was the greatest day of my life. But there is just like an epidemic of too much space. And again, we are told often that it confers a sense of status, of wealth, of discernment. And in my view, and I think in the experience of living there, all it does is the opposite. But those are just a few things that I personally think downgrade your lifestyle and downgrade your home. And I would love to hear what some of yours are, so feel free to sound off in the comments. And if you want to learn more about the art of creating a home that feels great to live in and to invite people over to, pick up Having People Over out everywhere October 21st. That's really soon. Bye guys, see you next week.